just did Bhakti, they just turned it into a school. They had the regular programs, but they just turned the whole thing into a school for 3 months. Other programs you might suffer. When the devotees they take very bad training. Like to join us if they see that they're getting good education. If it's just either pick up a case or a poem according to your ability, either you're sweeping the floor or you're taking out the business of the collection. That's all. People may not be so enthusiastic to join. Many times people say that I used to read more because it shouldn't be. I mean, practical. Even if they do something, they have to develop properly. You put on your steps. Well, I just got now. Just some few other points. We should preach this. Don't encourage. It's easy to encourage divorce in many cases. It's very common now in India. In the name of Bhakti, people want to divorce. Prabhupada himself, as he said, I didn't like my wife. But he still went through years and years struggling to maintain a family that didn't in the slightest bit support him in his bhakti. We don't want to start encouraging. At home, they're not inclined to bhakti, then you just do quietly at home, you don't disturb them. If you have to suffer because of them, then just suffer. Because there are so many cases in the history of India of both men and, well, especially women, because sometimes the men would take sannyas if their family members didn't like it, but Prabhupada's sister was a good example. Her husband, her father was fully a devotee, but somehow or other he married her to a non-devotee, and she had to cook fish for him every day. She was doing her street time, but she did her own bhakti. She went on with that. Definitely we don't want to. Once you start to say to some, oh, a special case, okay, you divorce. And then there'll be another special case in that section. And everyone will just take it as an excuse, and it will make chaos. And in many cases, if the husband and wife, even if they're not going so well together, they stay together, then it gets better, somehow or other they adjust. And anyway, there's no divorce is just not allowed. It's not there. Very demonic. It's totally because marriage is not just, it's done in sacred, it's like without our yajna. Although some people do without our yajna for dogs also. Yeah, and creating the right said yesterday that I'm not one of the greatest fans of the women's liberation movement. But then we should also see that our mothers, they may have cause for complaint also. Why they complain? They may have cause for complaint. Often I see in our temples in India and in the West that the same attitude the young thing, the women, they also have the same. Or the women are just squashed up at the back and the men don't think that maybe should do this. But often I see. So I would request you to all the men to consider these things. It's less like we say mother cow and send her to the slaughterhouse. We don't actually slaughter her. When she gets old, we sell her. My wife. So it's not just enough to say go mother. It should actually be go yakshi. So in the same way, it's not enough just to say Mataji, but also they have to properly respect. These are just small little things like that. Usually women, they hold on to sacrifice. Mothers are worshipped because they sacrifice. Work hard and cook and clean and they just tolerate the emotions of love and this and that. So they're worshipped for these qualities, but another point, just another point. Here's something that you all can think about. If you can put it into action, then there's a lot of light by preaching in difficult situations. There are people that do Now in India we're preaching, we're distributing our books, we're doing programs, but there's large section of the population. There are various sections of the population you hardly reach, tribal that you hardly reach. And maybe you should educate the class first, so everyone can take to Krishna consciousness. But there is a large section of the population who, if we can make an impact in preaching to, that would be most of all, I don't know exactly the number, but 20 million Muslims in this country. And there's no reason why, at least from the ontological point of view, there's no reason why they can't take to Krishna consciousness also, because they're also Krishna Das. Socially, it's difficult. But actually there are different sects of Muslims in Gujarat. There's Ahmadiyyas and Borders, and they're actually not so tough like others. So maybe you can try and distribute books in those areas also. And that's specialness. Maybe you have to go to 100 Muslims to get one to even think of taking it. But if you get one to take, that would be something very wonderful. You have to consider how to present also. Maybe during Eid, you could arrange sometime not Eid, Ramadan, you could arrange an iftar party or some vegetarian iftar party or something, I don't know. Don't tell them you're devotees, if they don't like to take prasadam. Somehow or other, I mean there are Muslims who will take an interest, at least on an academic, professors, they may take an interest on an academic level. There are people who are interested. In Bahrain once I was at a dentist, and emergency dental treatment. He got his dental degree in London, and I didn't want to tell him I was a Hare Krishna devotee, so I said, I'm teaching Vedanta. He said, oh really, I'm very interested in that. So there is scope. Maybe in India, it may be a little difficult, but if you can do so, anything you can do in this field will be very glorious. Certainly, very much appreciated. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, we find in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he was especially inquiring from Haridas Thakur at how can we deliver these jogams who they kill cows. He's talking about, of course that's a general term, but specifically in Bengal, jogam, yagam, that specifically means Muslim. So how can we deliver these Muslims? They kill cows and they're against Vedic culture. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Haridas Thakur replied that if they hear the holy names, that will be for their tremendous benefit. So we can sometimes do Harinam through the Muslim areas also. But we have to see, because some Muslim areas are a little more high class and others less so. In Surat, there are some areas. In Surat in general, the Muslims are quite mild, it seems, except when it comes to, in some areas, yeah. So you have to see. Previously, there was no bad feeling of the Muslims towards ISKCON especially, because they used to see us as something different. We never used to have any problem with Rath Yatra or any such things, but I think even when it was going through the Muslim area.
For 19 it was very normal.
Yeah. Anyway, if somehow you have to think, how to do it somewhat cautiously, because it can be dangerous. And in times of tension, obviously when there are riots going on, at that time, and just for some time after them, that you may not want to. It may be dangerous, actually, but maybe more dangerous. But at other times, if you can think how to distribute, maybe do Harinam, whatever you think how to do. If you can preach to Muslims. Now another thing is that maybe there's a lot of field for preaching on the internet, by correspondence. So many people, they buy books and then they write letters. So there's a lot of preaching to do like that. You have your whole mail out going on. And then, just like we here in Gujarat, actually we should have some vision how to preach throughout the whole of Gujarat and how to make the whole of Gujarat Krishna conscious for distributed. So many books are being distributed here. So if there are interested people, then even if there's one person who's interested, we should send someone out in 200 kilometers, whatever. We can invite them to come, or maybe go. Someone writes a letter, maybe we should go and see them, do some small program in their home. Have this kind of vision. Where there's, just like a businessman, when there's some opportunity, he'll take how to exploit it. Now the field is good, how to exploit that for business. Now we have our business of spreading Krishna consciousness. So how to develop that? If there's someone who's interested, we should go out to them and invite them to festivals. Bring them in. And another thing is we don't have to wait for sannyasis to come to organize various programs. In Vallabhidinagara there's house programs almost every day. Just 2 devotees from the temple are going out, but that can be done regularly in other places also. You can have Vyasa Bhaktas, they can also give the lecture. It doesn't have to be something. If you wait for so many sattva, so many jivas to make, so many interested people maybe not getting the Krishna conscious they could be getting. broader discussion on various topics. I guess there's that particular one when I wanted to discuss the young men's liberation movement. But I don't want to discuss that with everyone, just a few temple leaders. It's not something we discuss with everyone. How to extract gold from a filthy place. Then we could have some general discussion on various topics that I've brought up in the last, yesterday and today. Any point, there are so many topics I discussed here about book distribution, Prabhupada's books, distribution projects, distribution of my books, farm projects. Another thing, one more point, is that this is something a little revolutionary. Prabhupada many times suggested it is actually part of Indian culture until quite recently, and still going on. Is, as Prabhupada said, there are always more women than men in society. You'll find it in most communities, except with few exceptions, like the Punjabis, the Sikhs, they mostly have, maybe it's 50-50 or men more than women, slightly more. And then some men also, Prabhupada said, they take up renouncement, so that more, but then again, all women are supposed to get married. So Prabhupada suggested the traditional Indian system of polygamy. So we might encourage also, if we see a man is going on in his family life, he's a responsible, he has to take responsibility for more than one wife. That's something to be discussed more among the Grihastas. But that's all, because otherwise, how are all these young women who are taking to Krishna consciousness? Who's going to protect them? The traditional solution is that the solution to it's a social problem that women are not married, and it's a problem within our society. If young ladies are taking to Krishna consciousness and they don't have any proper protected husband, then the traditional solution is that men may have more than one wife, and that's still going on. Sometimes because a man, he just due to some looseness in his behavior, he contacts another woman, and then more responsible than to abandon one wife and divorce is to marry another wife. Or sometimes if the wife he marries and she doesn't have any children or she doesn't have any male children, that's still considered a valid reason in many communities for a man to take another wife. But actually, traditionally you can take anyone. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be that the wife has no children or whatever. They can take one wife. They can support and they're responsible. And they can do. Now in our society, it's because Prabhupada said different things. Prabhupada is very much encouraging it, but he said we cannot allow it in our society. So what does that mean? On one hand, Prabhupada's encouraging polygamy, on the other hand, he said we can't encourage it in our society. Well, from what I understand, by this I understand he means that devotees who are married couples who are living in the temple community, the temple can't support. The temple is not a place for supporting large families, especially if they're by more than one wife. But if a man himself is earning money, and he's earning sufficiently, then he could, and actually Prabhupada said they should take more than one wife. So that's something I'm going to start encouraging, because it is ordained by Shastra. Prabhupada said to do it, and as from what I can understand, it's only a misunderstanding of what Prabhupada said, that we shouldn't do it. They said, well, in America it's illegal. So then that's another reason Prabhupada said, well, we shouldn't do it within our society. which I understand to mean within the four walls, the literal institution. But then again, when Prabhupada was asked, he said, well, how can we do it? How can householders do it? It's illegal. Prabhupada said, you can say it's a girlfriend. That's it. But you keep as a wife, you can have the ceremony, and if anyone asks you, you just say you don't legally register. That's it. If it's illegal. So Prabhupada even gave the solution like that. So that's something that should be considered. Generally the first wife doesn't like it if there's a second wife. But sometimes they do like it, because it's like they become like sisters or something, and then it's some company for them also. I was reading something in Africa, they were asking, in some communities in Africa it's still very common a man has 6 or 7 wives, and they were asking, because they were asking the women, don't you think, that's not very nice for you to have more than co-wives? They said, no, I want co-wives, because, otherwise we don't have, it's not so much company, and you see, they like it, they're used to it, that's their culture. So it's like having some sisters at home, something like that. And they might fight among themselves, but everyone fights among themselves anyway, so that's sometimes, not all the time. It's just like, men fight among themselves also, but that doesn't mean we don't associate with anyone. We go on with life. So that is what might be considered a somewhat revolutionary suggestion, but as far as I see, it's a practical solution, because we're seeing practically that when it's a question of getting devotees married, the problem is usually not so much for the men's side as for the women's side, because there are more in our in the community of devotees that we're preaching among. It seems that there are always more young women coming than men who do want to marry. So that's it. Prabhupada himself does this. I'm not saying anything new. It just seems to be new because it hasn't been encouraged in our society, although Prabhupada himself encouraged it. So that's one point. Hare Krishna. Anyone has any points for discussion? Yeah.
About this last point, I also heard about Prabhupada that one disciple approached him and he asked about this program. So Prabhupada, he answered first he agreed, and then next day he told him, yes, but we cannot do because of the society.
Yeah. Because people will criticize. But then after that, Prabhupada again said, if we see the chronology, Prabhupada gave the solution that you keep as a girlfriend. That which Prabhupada said we can't do because people will criticize because it's illegal. That wasn't Prabhupada's last word on it. And in India certainly it's still quite socially acceptable. You see the whole thing is ridiculous. That comes up in that Glimpses of Traditional Indian Life book in the discussion of Rasiraj Prabhu. That they're very much against in the Western countries, and in India now many people say they're very much against child marriage. They say a 13-year-old girl, it's very wrong she should be married. But it's quite normal that 13, 14-year-old girls are pregnant with getting abortions or having children. So young unmarried mothers, that's quite common and normal. But that girls should be married and have a protector and a husband, that's very bad. What a nonsense society. It's just ridiculous. Abortions for unmarried 14-year-old girls, that's normal. That's okay. But marriage, no. It's insane. The whole values of the society are so warped. Warped, that means it means twisted out of shape. Then, anything else?
Apart from that, there are millions of temples in India. You don't need to do anything more than that.
Yeah. Well, the Prabhupada said that, but Prabhupada said that there's no need to build so many temples in India. He said, we build a few temples, now we should concentrate on distributing books. But then again, Prabhupada, whenever there was many times, even after saying that, he wrote that when was that he wrote that? It was quite early, it was 72, and a lot happened after 72. Prabhupada opened many temples in India after that. When there are some places he turned down, because he said if people offered some temple or land in a small place in India, sometimes he turned it down and said, we don't have manpower. But then when in Hyderabad, land was offered in the center of the city, he took it. In Bhubaneswar, of course, these are important cities. In Bhubaneswar, land was offered which was just an open site at the time, but it was slated to become the new city, which it has become. Prabhupada took it. So it wasn't, and Prabhupada also said that we want to open millions of temples all over the world. So we want to open the temples every town and village. So Prabhupada wasn't intrinsically against opening them, it's just a matter of strategy, so what's the best way to spread Krishna consciousness. Well, it depends a lot on the mood of on how it's done also. Building temples is often a very good way to distribute books also. You can distribute several books right from the temple. That may be, but it's not that we're against building temples and having temples. We have to see in each situation what's practical, what's the best thing to do. I think we can't make a general rule that we shouldn't build temples. Generally, it's not a good idea to build a building and then you have to fill it up with people who are maybe not the best people to fill it up. Mostly, yeah, but this is the kind of issue that should be taken to the ICC. It's not that for us, we can't change, we're not in a position here to change the whole course of ISKCON India or ISKCON the world, but understand that what we can affect among ourselves here.
We see here in Baroda, like example, we have building and many people come. So if we take an opportunity, like we started with book taking program and many young students also, they have this good field for Krishna.
Definitely the whole presence of this, the presence of ISKCON it changed. The very status or the position of ISKCON within Baroda changed on Janmashtami Day 2000, what year is it? 2000 or 1999? Which year? 1999. It was overnight. Just before the temple was opened, some momentum was building up, but then on Janmashtami Day the deities were installed, the new temple opened, and practically overnight it went from a basement operation to a full-fledged temple, which is the most popular temple in Baroda, and it's very prestigious. ISKCON was really established in Baroda on that day. The temple definitely makes a difference. Temples are supposed to be for the public and for neophyte devotees, which constitutes most of the people. So there's a question of quality and quantity, but definitely temples are for giving a general impression of Krishna consciousness. As Prabhupada said, we're preaching on two levels. We're preaching among the devotees to make them very strong, and then actually Prabhupada said for his book distribution, one is for devotees, that some people read them and who are very sincere, and they'll become very strong. And then there's Prabhupada's preaching mission in general, and then there's the general impression, to give a general idea of Krishna consciousness to as many people as possible. Some people are not very interested, but at least they'll come and they'll see the Rathayatra once a year or something like this. That's a great benefit. You can't expect everybody to go behind us. So we should understand that. So there's a question of quality and quantity, which we always have to bear in mind. There's in Lilamrita, Prabhupada Lilamrita describes that Prabhupada visited before Prabhupada even had land in Mayapur. So So he visited two of his godbrothers in Navadvip, two of his godbrothers, monks. One was the monk of Keshav Maharaj, who had already passed away by that time. That's now dominated, the Devananda Goyal is now dominated by the Acharyas, Rama Maharaj, but the most famous preacher from that much is Bhakti and Narayana Maharaj. So actually, first of all, they went to Sridhar Maharaj's much, and they saw there's not very few devotees, but they are very seriously engaged in bhajan, very learned in Shastra, very good behavior. And then they went to Devananda Goyal. But this is a generalization, of course. So there are many brahmacharis and sannyasis about a certain month in Navadvip. I was told that every brahmachari there has his didi. Didi means sister, and it's a euphemism for girlfriend. So they had many followers, but not a very high standard. Whereas the other month, they had not many followers, but a very high standard. So then one of the devotees of Prabhupada asked Prabhupada, I see in one place there's more quantity, and the other there's more quality. So which should we emphasize? And Prabhupada said, both. He didn't choose one or the other. Definitely, if we go for quantity, then quality will suffer. If we go for quality, quality will suffer. So, what's the solution? There is no solution. But we ourselves should become sincere servants of the Lord and try to, within our capacity, help others to come up. Try to help everyone come up as much as they can, including ourselves. And recognize also that there will be different levels. Not everyone is going to be a Maha Bhagavat, Ashtatara Shata Shri, Avatrut, Paramahamsa. We have to recognize. Many people, they'll come into the temple, give you a donation, take you some prasad, and many won't. We try to bring people beyond that, but we also have to recognize there are many people who, if they do that, that's very beneficial. Anyone who sees the Lord in arati, it's very beneficial. They appreciate the beautiful dressing and like this. Although the temples are headache to run on, and often the institutional problems they may give us a headache, but it's very beneficial for people in general. Which is why acharyas have established mats. They don't leave them for themselves. They've established mandirs. Acharyas, they don't need these big temples, but they establish them for the benefit of the devotees and the general public. But I also appreciate people first, projects second. It's a good formula. We should put more emphasis on people. Projects are also required, but the emphasis should be, the aim of the project is to help people come up in Krishna consciousness. So the real wealth of the temple is not how many lakhs or crores of rupees are passing through it, or how many good people come to visit. But the real wealth of the temple is, the real decoration of the temple are the beautiful devotees. Or the people who are coming up in Krishna consciousness. People first. Make people Krishna conscious. All the facilities are meant for that only. Right, yeah. Just yesterday I was introduced to some devotees who have taken it up in Dalabhidanagar temple. They've made it their service, or they've been given that service to meet people who are coming in. In Bombay they were doing that for some time in Juhu, getting people to chant and that sort of thing. Alright, well anyway, there's no need to particularly highlight the faults of Juhu temple, whatever. But we can see in each, definitely the temples there where there's good facility for preaching. Prabhupada even said to Jayapataka Maharaj, it's interesting that the Jayapataka Maharaj of all people, he also taught Jayapataka Maharaj to travel and preach, but he also, one thing he said is that you don't have to go anywhere, you can just stay in Mayapur and preach, because so many people are coming to you. But then he also told that you can also travel all over the world. So. But it is a point that so many people come to our temples that we're talking about going 300 kilometers to meet people. But it's also a fact that we don't tap the full resources of the people coming to our temples. So I think you're doing that in Surat, isn't it also? You have a book table and people are coming and they're taking their address. Right, yeah. So that's good. Keeping up with all the people. I mean, if we want to individually preach to everyone to come, that's also not possible. We have to be realistic also. We can have preaching right at the temple. That's a very good program. Just how you have that production in ISKCON Surat. So you could take groups around, and maybe on days like Sunday or Saturday when many people are coming, then every half an hour you have a group, and you take them and you explain what is, and in other words you preach to them, this is this and this is that, this is Krishna Janma Leela, Janma Karma Chandraya Janma. You can take them around and they'll appreciate it. They'll learn something, and at the end you sell them about their people. Just wait a minute. Two months ago you had a spiritual questionnaire. SQ. I think we should be a little careful in our choice of words, because your spiritual ability is not measured by the ability to answer questions. Yeah, but at the same time you have to be careful, because it's just like I said yesterday, food for life. From the beginning it gives the wrong impression of what we're supposed to be doing. Then it's better to present a proper picture of Krishna consciousness from the beginning. It may be a good medium to attract people, but then it attracts them immediately, giving them a wrong idea that just like we had this debating competition in here when there was the 1996. I didn't like that because it's the ability to debate. It's specifically stated, you'll find in our Acharya's writings, that the ability to debate has got nothing to do with one's. In fact, this debating and argumentative attitude is actually considered an obstacle to advancement in Krishna consciousness. So ISKCON organized these debating contests in which people were standing up and talking about Vivekananda. I just don't see how it served the purpose of Krishna consciousness. And then it gives the impression that we are just another eclectic Hindu society where you can come to an ISKCON center and talk about Vivekananda and everything's okay, because it's all one. So we should be careful. Prabhupada, even competitions, this kind of crosswords competition, we have Bhagavad Gita competitions, and it's very good to get people, because they're in this competitive mode, but actually Prabhupada, he specifically stated that he didn't want it, because Bhagavad Gita is traditionally never studied as a competition. It's studied for our spiritual uplift. Because Bhagavad Gita is to be studied with which mood? Shishya steham shadivam tam vipamna. Not to show I know more than you. It's absolutely the wrong attitude for studying Bhagavad Gita. So, sorry I cut you out, and it may have seemed very successful. But the success is in what? Bringing people in and they take an interest. But at which point are we going to train them that showing yourself off to be better at answering questions than others and being very intelligent is the wrong attitude? Now you have to change your attitude. At which point do we tell them that? If we start off by making them a prize winner and you're the most intelligent, at which point do we tell them, actually we were just cheating you, and this is a wrong attitude to spiritual life. You start off in the wrong way. So, again, this is something which I'm saying, the whole of ISKCON is doing this. And I'm saying, at least I can say among others something. I just don't see how it brings in the right. And even people may take interest and they may become initiated and all this and that. But if they have the feeling that I'm the prize winner in the contest, I know more about what Gita than you. Actually, there was a contest like this even when Prabhupada was present. It was called the Gita Bowl, because there was a Gita Bowl. Was it something? Yeah, Bowl, not B-O-L like in Hindi, but Bowl, B-O-W-L, because there's in America they have Super Bowl. I think it's baseball or something. So they in the temples then they had on TV University Bowl, which is taken. It's based on the idea of Super Bowl, in which they answer. People come from the universities and ask them questions like, tell what is pi up to 20 digiters or something. They press the button and they say whatever it is. What is the capital of the Seychelles Islands? And they press their button and you have to see who's the most. It's like a knowledge quiz. So they had this in the temples. They started Gita Bowl competition to see who's the sharpest in answering questions on the Gita. When Prabhupada heard about it, he immediately stopped. He said, "This is bogus." So we find that devotees they liked it, and it encouraged them to study Gita. But Prabhupada didn't like it, and so we find that we have these competitions and this kind of thing, and it encourages people to study Gita. But we can see Prabhupada didn't like it, and I can understand why, because it's the wrong attitude to study Bhagavad Gita. It's not something to be eaten and swallowed and digested. It's not like a book you pick up and you study and you get your bhakti. Of course, we have Bhakti Shastri courses, but it's not supposed to be a competition. It's for our own purification. So that's another unpopular thing that I said, which probably, anyway, it's going to go on. It will go on. But I don't know actually if it's conducive to bhakti. If one thinks, I'm a big fan, I have a very high spiritual quotient. The high spiritual quotient that's actually judged by how much we think ourselves very fallen. I got the highest spiritual. I can answer more questions. I know more shlokas. And we may bring many people because people like it. And they may learn many shlokas from Gita or whatever it is, but that's not our aim and object. There are so many Mayavadis who know so many shlokas from Gita, but they don't develop a mood of devotion. Rather, Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his policy, if someone came in, a very educated person, and I'd like to join the mat, go in the kitchen and wash the pots. And not one time, but for months. Because if you don't do that, then you're never going to get free from the ahankara. And you see that many people, they're capable, they can do things. And they say, why are you making me? I can do much more than this. Wash the pots. Just wash the pots. It's good for you. So, if they don't, you see sometimes devotees, they join the temple full time and they're quite capable, and immediately they're given some responsibility, and in almost every case it destroys their bhakti. Because without learning the principle of submissive service, if they're immediately given some responsibility and some importance, then almost inevitably they become puffed up. So I don't know what else you would have to say, but I cut you out there because I'd rather, of course we may say, yes, well, go for preaching, many people come in, but I would rather be cautious, conservative. It's better to err on the side of, it's better to be careful than there are many different things we could do. We have to see what are the guidelines given by our Acharya also. given by Prabhupada. We've wholly neglected that Prabhupada didn't like competition. Of course, I had to invest in. There may have been some cases where he also allowed it, and maybe also. But there's the well-known case of the Gita bowl in which Prabhupada stopped it. On this line, on this premise, that Bhakti is not had by becoming expert in answering questions. Then you're taking Bhagavad Gita as something academic. Definitely we want to encourage devotees to study Shastra, but for the sake of purity, the main reason, for the sake of understanding what is Krishna consciousness and becoming purified. That is the main reason. We become purified by study. And also for preaching it is necessary. But in this idea, I will study and I will show myself I know so much. And then there's no bhakti. Krishna won't be pleased. We may get praise. Oh, such a great speaker. But Krishna won't be pleased.
Other competition like drawing competition. So it's also doing the same thing.
Marginal. I mean, it's the same principle, isn't it? People like it. It helps them to take an interest in Krishna. Maybe we should just give everyone a praise. But can we really say that someone's picture is, how can we say someone's picture is better than another's? That's ultimately for Krishna to decide, whether that Krishna likes the devotion. We're judging with our material senses, this looks better than that. It's just like those first paintings in the Krishna book. They're very amateurish. But many of our devotees, including myself, I like them better than the modern paintings, which are much more expertly done. They're childish, but they were done in a mood of great devotion. Prabhupada approved of them. Not only approved, he liked them.
This is the example where you are talking like we increase the devotees to take up Krishna consciousness, whatever level it is. The same time we go again the next.
Right, that's what I was saying. Quality and quantity, the two things, both we want. But if we aim at quality, then we restrict the quantity. And if we aim at quantity, then quality goes to hell.
There's examples where we can understand that both can be, what way they can be.
Well, we have to discuss in individual cases. In general, we should preach very widely, ourselves maintain a very high standard, and be liberal with newcomers. Liberal means that we don't, in the beginning we encourage them to chant Hare Krishna, we don't insist that they rise early in the morning, just gradually bring them in. But by our example, they can see what is the high standard. Gradually, the thing is that we should get them to hear, let them come and hear about Krishna. If they don't hear, they'll never advance. We don't encourage them. We may tolerate, but we don't encourage the wrong thing. And have them come and hear. And in a class, you can say anything. They'll gradually get the right idea. They should come and hear. That's actually why, of course, I'm giving a lot of examples from Bhakti Thakur because that's been my subject matter I've been intensely involved in for the last few months and years. But he was asked that why are you building more monks? There are already so many temples. He said we need our own place so we can speak our own message. Because if we speak what we have to say in someone else's temple, they won't like it. They won't tolerate it. And another thing, he very much emphasized that householder devotees, they must come regularly and serve in the mat and hear. They must hear. Very important. They should hear. So we should, in the temples, we should have classes and very much encourage people to come to the classes and hear regularly what is the message of Krishna. Then you can understand what is Krishna consciousness. If we don't have a taste for hearing, then we can never properly chant, we can never properly serve. Chanting is incomplete without hearing. unless one is already on the liberated platform, which doesn't apply in almost every case. Hearing must be there, and speaking must be strictly to the point of Siddhanta. And it may be that not so many people come in the beginning. But we see this like Bhakti how he was speaking, so uncompromised. His speaking was difficult in two ways. One thing was difficult to understand, because his language and his concepts and his philosophy were all very difficult. Another thing was difficult for people to take and to reverse. It was smashing all the wrong ideas. But still, so many people came and became disciples. So we have to see, there are different approaches in Krishna consciousness. There are different approaches. My general outlook is that not putting water in the milk, rather boil the milk. Boil it down. The thing is, if we go on putting more and more water, then gradually it becomes more like water than milk. It becomes, we don't see any difference. Just like, we may think, well, like these Qatar cars, so many people come because they speak in a very pleasing way. So we should also do the same thing. So many people come, and it may be effective in bringing many people, but then there's no difference between the professional speakers and us. So what's the point? What's the benefit? We bring many people, but we have to consider what are we bringing them for. We do want to bring many people, but we have to be very clear in understanding what are we bringing them for. Just to give a report that we had so many people coming, and to show we're a bigger institution than others, that's a totally mundane motive. We want to give them the real thing. There are already so many temples of Krishna. So unless our temples are places where people can come to a higher standard, where their lives can be changed and improved, then there's not that much point in having a temple. There should be a significant difference between this temple and another temple. The significant difference should be that we are educating, teaching, raising people to a higher level. Then, anything else? What else? Their outlook is different. I hope their philosophy is different. Sometimes their philosophy. Well, we only have one philosophy, that is which is coming from Krishna, then Brahma, Nara, Vyasa, and that's we only have one text. So if it's a different philosophy, then definitely there are problems. Definitely there are problems. Of course, even there may be different. In details even, there may be some different, even in philosophy, there may be some different outlooks. That's also possible. Recently, this question of Ramcharitmanas came up on a Sunday. So, it's a mixed thing. The Prabhupada himself even lectured on a verse from Ramcharitmanas. But then on the other hand, he said that there's some Mayavad tinge there, or some non-developing tinge. So, actually it shouldn't be such a big question, but we don't give it's not our book. Our books are Gita, Bhagavad, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are the books we lecture in this book. So we don't give, we shouldn't have Ramcharitmanas lecture. Valmiki Ramayana, because we always said that this is the actual Ramayana. But then there may be scope for quoting sometimes also Ramcharitmanas, which Prabhupada himself did sometimes quote. Prabhupada sometimes quoted Chandracharya, Jiva Swami quoted Chandracharya. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami quoted Chandracharya. So it's not that everything that everyone says is wrong. Their basic philosophy, we don't teach their philosophy. But if they say something that is right, we may quote it. But we have to ourselves be situated in Siddhanta to be able to do that. It's just like if you're preaching in Islamic countries, I was told by some devotees from Iran, that if many people are interested, but they want to understand, well, how does this fit with Islam? And so unless someone knows Islam, the Quran, the Hadith and all this very well, it's very difficult to preach. Difficult to actually convince people. If you can convince people that this is Islam, and then gradually maybe something more, it's not contradictory to Islam. So for most people that approach is required. So then you require detailed knowledge of that. So you may quote the Quran many times. It doesn't mean that we become Muslims. So, well, yes, we are. In the real sense of the term, Islam means surrender. So in that sense, yes, we are Muslims. But, the Ramcharitmanas, that's mostly of the Ramanandis. So we're not part of that Ramanandi Sampradaya, but on the other hand, we are Ramanandis also, because we take pleasure in Ramante Yogino Nante Satyanam Nichidanam Iti Ramapadena So Param Brahma Iti Yate. We are also worshippers of Lord Ram, who take pleasure in remembering Ram Charitmana. So anyway, we're not part of that Sampradaya. It's not really, we shouldn't start thinking, although it started in Delhi, this one devotees giving public lectures on Ramcharitmanas, but that's not really our subject, or your interest. People ask me also, I say that different, it seems to be a point that different people have different outlooks on, but there are commands in Shastra which apparently support both positions, and Prabhupada said this. And I don't think that Prabhupada is cheating me. I accept what Prabhupada said. It's said that Prabhupada just said that to try for some time-wasting circumstance thing, but there's no evidence that Prabhupada did say so under time-wasting circumstances. And he was saying that this is the Siddhanta, so I accept that. And you can accept whatever you like. This is how I understand. If you ask me, this is what I understand. Someone else understands another way. As Prabhupada was our Acharya, he has quoting Shastra, Krishna Bhuli Se Jivan Adi Bharimu. And we have the story of in the Puranjana section of Bhagavatam, in which it said, my old friend, you have forgotten me, and we are Bhagavatam. And there are so many evidences that the Jiva was with Krishna. So, we can quote that also. Well, is the whole lecture like coming on the point that if you find it's a disturbance to your Krishna consciousness, then don't. It comes up in the lecture, you mean? Then you can say with questions and answers. Has to leave why? Because you quote Prabhupada? In which, can you give an instance in which someone's been told to leave the temple because they quote Prabhupada? You mean many people have been thrown out of Bombay temple for quoting Srila Prabhupada? Really? You know so many things I don't know. Maybe you're taking more interest in... Maybe you're more interested in that area. Dozens of people thrown out from ISKCON temples for stating that what Prabhupada states. If that's a fact, it's extremely serious. Alright, make a report, tell me. You have to give facts, figures, dates, names, places. No, if that's actually a fact, what you're saying, although I must say that many times you tell me things, and then when I investigated a bit, I find that your perspective on it is sometimes more bleak than the actual situation is. But if it's actually a fact, then it's something very serious and it should be taken up at institutional level. I'm willing to do it. I'm taking up so many, but how many things can I take up at institutional level? Any guru in our society speaks things which are actually complete nonsense, then I feel it's my duty. I mean, there is at least one case of a guru in our society who's distributing in the various languages all over the world a book which is full of absolute nonsense. So, about flying saucers coming from the center of the earth, and the world was formerly ruled from Egypt, not from India, and so many funny things. So that's been taken up. I made a complaint to the GBC and they've taken it up. So that's something very serious. The Guru is talking nonsense, because every Vaishnava is supposed to talk about the Guru's Sadhu Shastra, what to speak of the Guru. So that's very serious, because if we don't say anything, that means it becomes accepted ISKCON teaching. If someone's talking things which is not according to Guru's Sadhu Shastra, and we don't say anything against it, that means we accept it. Monam sammati lakshanam. So this is an example of something very serious. So if something's less serious, then there are so many things. So I'm not taking up on an institutional level things which are less serious. But if, as you say, there are many people being removed from ISKCON temples for asking about or protesting or bringing up the philosophical point that Prabhupada upheld the shastrically upholdable version, wasn't Prabhupada's imagination, that the jiva is originally with Krishna, then it's something serious. So make a report and I'll take it up. Okay, anything else? And then I'm going to close the session as well, so I'm going to get my head shaved. Best. In some cases they marry a non-devotee and then the non-devotee becomes a devotee. There are some very nice instances of that. But it's more of a risk. Definitely it's a risk. I don't think temples should do it. I think the grihastas themselves should do it. Yeah, congregational devotees. Is it possible? Not is it possible. It should and must be done. Now you have also crossed that side of the fence. And no, it's actually taking a responsible position. You have to take it's a social position. In the name of being a brahmachari, people are often they're like irresponsible people. They just do a little service, not very seriously, and they eat and sleep. It's irresponsible. Such people should be married. They should take responsibility. Everyone should be responsibility. Saffron cloth is not meant to be an excuse for being a lout, parasite. One in saffron cloth should be very seriously endeavoring in devotional service. And then, otherwise, why should they be supported by society? So now you have taken that decision, you've entered family life, and you yourself are new in that, but due to lack of others, you could help to take up that responsibility of helping others who are going that way. It's better if they're more senior in age also than yourself. So, well, we have, but Rupa Swami is there, but he's so old, he shouldn't have anything. He himself also shouldn't have anything to do with family life. He should be on the other side. crossed the first fence, and now we have to cross. One has to enter family life to prepare himself to come out the other side. You do your duty, and you come out the other side. And that's how it's supposed to be. So probably better you should be going for Dham Bas. That would be better. Maybe like Kashyap Prabhu's brother, this age group. Better.
So, the whole rule nowadays is that anything which is not specific to that Prabhupada, not specific to that Prabhupada himself, that is not as bona fide as what the Prabhupada. How do you...
It's the Quran and the Hadith, isn't it?
How do you make a distinction?
Well, this is quite a complex epistemological question, or hermeneutical question, I guess you could say also. Epistemology is the branch of philosophy that deals with how do we know anything, on what grounds can we accept anything as knowledge. And hermeneutics is it means the science of scriptural interpretation. Transcendental Diary, I would say it's pretty good because it was recorded faithfully at that time. Of course, you may say that's Hari Shoy Prabhu's own outlook on it, but I don't feel that he's personally trying to give his own. He's just trying to present Prabhupada as it is, and I think he does a pretty good job of it. Now, even what Prabhupada says, that also goes through the filter of our own consciousness. So the real thing is that we should hear, even what Prabhupada says, we also have to hear from sadhus. That's the traditional system. It's not that we just read Shastra or we read books and then that's it. But we're also supposed to hear from sadhus who themselves are supposed to be chitete korea oikya, with the instructions that their heart is supposed to be one with that which they've heard from their guru. And they, with faith in that principle, one should hear from sadhus and understand in this way. That is the way. Even reading ourselves, you'll find in Prabhupada's books there's so many apparently contradictory statements. And in Shastra itself, just like this fall or non-fall of the jiva, there are commands on both sides. And even different acharyas say different things. So it can become very complex. Therefore, one is enjoined to Tasmad Guru, well actually not for that reason, one is supposed to approach a guru, but Yasya Deve Parabhakti Yata Deve Tata Guru Tasaite Katitahya Tapakashanti Mahadana. One should, when there are difficult questions, recondite questions from Shastra, even from Prabhupada's teachings, then we should consult Guru, not simply try to understand it all with our own brain power. Of course you may say that the Guru is not that available. Maybe myself, I may have sometimes ambivalent opinions on different issues also. As Prabhupada himself did. It's not that everything is black and white. Just like Prabhupada, he would say, no more sannyasis. Sannyasi is not up to standard. We'd stop. And then himself would give sannyas initiation. We don't need to open any more temples. Just leave. And then himself would open more temples. So, the absolute truth is not necessarily something that we can always understand with logic. In fact, the wholly logical approach to understanding the absolute truth is rejected in Shastra. Although logic is used to understand the absolute truth to a certain level, but on the other hand, achintya kalo ye bhavana tam tarkena yojayat prakriti viparanyat. That achintyasya lakshanam, the very symptom of that which is inconceivable is that it cannot be conceived, it cannot be understood by logic and argument. Therefore the attempt to do so is not recommended. Okay, I'm going to finish there because time up. I said 1 o'clock, but I don't want to go there. Actually, maybe beyond time for lunch. We can continue with discussion. This is good. That if we're ruled by sticks, that's discipline. That we should voluntarily accept the ruling of Shastra. That is, a Brahmana is not ruled by the king, who rules others by the force of his hands, because the Brahmana is self-disciplined according to Shastra. He doesn't need the external discipline, because he's fixed in proper philosophical understanding of Shastra. So, 4:30 we can meet again. And tomorrow we're supposed to go to the station at 4:30 for Harinam. Who's going to organize?